Hello, McReviews here, and today I'm looking at the recently released Grounded. If you like this video, please make sure to subscribe to keep up with my latest reviews. So Grounded is a first-party Xbox game from Obsidian Entertainment, a studio that were acquired by and formed part of the Xbox Studios group. As such, it has been available on Game Pass on the Xbox since day one of its initial release as a game preview. The game sees you take on a world not entirely alien to players, but from a completely new perspective, shrunk down to the size of an insect to rub shoulders with cute and terrifying bugs alike. Starting off with nothing and with no understanding of how you came to be this size, you are tasked with surviving and thriving in this back garden environment, but also uncovering the mystery of your size and the scientific equipment that can be found dotted around. What looks harmless from above is full of danger and challenges once you're sprinting in between the stalks of grass. Now, the best thing this game does is really get its central premise across to the player. It brilliantly presents a world that manages to simultaneously seem so recognisable as what it would really feel like to be down there, but also a completely foreign and alien world. Sunlight creeps through the blades of grass as morning dew glides down their stalks for you to chase and drink, and underground nests are lit with luminescent fungi. The scale feels just right, and it often impresses as you look up at the towering dandelion stalks and follow the tiny tracks and tunnels that insects have made. Insects and bugs look great and are all different with varying levels of aggression and have unique personalities. Some are friendly and will come up to you to investigate, others will leave you alone unless provoked, and some will try to eat you on sight. Particularly menacing are the game's spiders. Now, I wouldn't consider myself scared of spiders or anything, but they are horrible here and are likely to make anyone feel a little uncomfortable. Their creepy movement and stature is so much so that there's actually an arachnophobia mode whereby spiders can be toned down to remove their legs or even just be a couple of white blobs. Good for those who may really need it, but I'd recommend putting yourself through the discomfort to preserve the game's intention. You harvest materials from the environment as well as these creatures, and this is what you will use to craft yourself new tools, weapons, armour and gear. As you improve your kit, you'll be able to do more and take on tougher challenges and enemies. As you pick up new materials, you will reveal new things that you can create. Items also can be researched at one of the mysterious tiny labs that dot the map. Once researched, materials can reveal new crafting recipes or a more advanced version of that material. Whilst this seems to work pretty smoothly, I noticed a few times that I would miss a step somewhere, and for a long time I would just be left wondering what to do. For example, I actually missed the first research lab initially, the first minutes of the game, and so for a while was completely flummoxed as how to create my first chopping tool. Equally, the second tier version of that tool, which I knew existed because it was required to chop down weeds, took me so long to uncover as it was a few quite rare and specific items that revealed it. Whilst I like when a game allows itself to reveal itself naturally, you never want to be stuck wondering what to do. Some materials are collected, some you'll have to fight for, but for most, you'll use tools to chop down and mine them into manageable quantities. There's a nice tactile feel to it, and it's enjoyable watching your recently felled blade of grass tumble to the earth and break up into pieces. For bigger items like campfires and water collectors, alongside base building elements like sections of walls and doors, you need grass panels and weed stem logs. These have to be manually carried and stockpiled in order to be used, which adds an extra layer to the building. This base building element works alright, not the best, but usually works well enough. Sometimes it can be difficult to precisely piece sections together as the uneven terrain can cause walls to not link up how you'd like, but with enough persuasion it can usually be done. I'm not the best architect, and so I stuck to a classic shack to keep me safe at night. But already online people have constructed brilliant mansion-like houses. There is also a creative mode to the game where you have access to all resources without having to gather the materials, and you're not in danger of being attacked by any bugs. When you do have to fight for survival, the combat is pretty well known. Enemies can be split into two main types, smaller ones that come in groups with relatively little health, like worker ants and mites, and big ones with lots more health. Combat against the smaller ones feels fine, requiring quick reactions and precision to hit their tiny scurrying frame as you block from different directions. Unfortunately, combat against larger foes needs improvement. The best tactic for killing most of these is to desperately jump around them in a circle, swinging wildly. It never feels much of a tactical matchup. They have devastating attacks that feel very overpowered when playing single player, but it is more balanced online. Even in full armour, most will kill you in 2 shots and some in 1, so the only option is to keep moving. Ladybugs in particular are an absolute nightmare to try and kill with ridiculous amounts of health and a one-hit kill charge move that you might have to dodge 15 to 20 times in a single fight, which is a lot to never put a foot wrong in. I was killed so many times that I had to resort to trapping it behind a structure and firing about 100 arrows at it. I shouldn't really get to the point where I felt like I had to do that. You can attack by slashing enemies, throwing a weapon, or shooting from a bow. There are some unique weapons where their main purpose is dealing damage, but often you'll find yourself attacking with your tools. The bow doesn't seem to do enough damage to make it viable for anything other than hunting tiny creatures like aphids to cook for lunch, as if you ever get to an advantageous position with a bow against an enemy, their pathfinding to try and attack you just sends them further and further away until they forget about you. Another annoying thing is that if you deal damage to a creature and for some reason it goes back into a passive state, it will almost immediately heal back up to full health, which can be annoying. The game isn't released yet, it's just out on game preview. Because of that, there's a distinct lack of story content. Initially, you have no idea why you are so tiny and then stumble across a strange contraption with lasers shooting at it. Some aren't connecting and you have to figure out how to get it working again. Then you discover a mysterious base occupied by 2 robots, one friendly, one not so much. You chat to the robot who doesn't give you a lot of answers and it's done. You get a message saying that's all there is in terms of narrative content. The robot can give mini quests out, like discovering certain locations or killing a number of a certain enemy, but it lacks a sense of completeness to keep it compelling after a couple hours. There is an in-game currency called science, which can be collected by completing these missions or found in interesting locations. This can be used to purchase a small amount of upgrades like an improved torch or allowing for bases to have more than one floor. Whilst it obviously is forgivable as the game is only in the preview stage, I was still surprised with the lack of content to drive you forward even for another couple of hours. For a game made by Microsoft Studios, it felt strange that it is allowed to go live while still feeling quite underwhelming. Currently there's about 90 minutes of story content, and even that is accounting for the time it might take you to figure some of the early game mechanics out. There are good playable characters who amuse with quips and are very likeable. Hopefully this can develop more with more content. There's plenty to explore and look around, lots of landmarks to climb up or work your way through, and usually you'll be rewarded with some science. It's just at the moment there isn't a whole lot there other than to satisfy curiosity. Even doing that, you still are likely to miss stuff as it can be quite easy to overlook a small entrance to a tunnel or pass up on something uninteresting, and the map isn't great with few icons and no suggestions for what to explore. It's obvious that with more time the world will be given more meaning. I stumbled across this treetop complex I explored, but unfortunately I couldn't find a way in. Stuff like this is fun to stumble across, but for me, it needs to have more development before you can really consider it an asset to the game. Summing it up, Grounded is a beautifully realised world and concept with a large amount of potential on your own or to explore with friends. Unfortunately, at the moment, it's still very much leaning towards the potential side of the spectrum than a realised game, and understandably so as a game preview. However, you will wish there was a bigger chunk of the narrative to get stuck into, as it abruptly stops just as it starts to kick into the next gear. Still, there's plenty to aim for with the crafting and research side of things, with tools, weapons and gear to try and upgrade and improve. It's fun to look around and search for science, as well as uncovering the game's more unique locations and scariest creatures. Base building could do with a little work, and ultimately it doesn't feel like features like wall health have much of a purpose at the moment, as unless you lead an angry creature straight to it, nothing will happen to your base. Needless to say, the game has its issue with bugs, but not much that's particularly noticeable. I give Grounded a 7 out of 10. Have you played this game? What did you think? Let me know in the comments below, and if you like this video, please consider liking and subscribing. See you later.